Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Janna.
And I'm Samiksha Srivastava. On the show today, hours after US Navy seized two oil tankers linked to Venezuelan oil in the Atlantic and the Caribbean, it's President Trump who says that Venezuela will only buy US goods with the oil deal money. In fact, the White House also says that US to selectively roll back sanctions on Venezuela. Tracking all those developments on the show today.
Also on World DNA, we shift focus to other aspects of the US. ICE agents, they fatally shoot a woman in Minneapolis during US immigration crackdown, while President Trump says that the ICE officer involved in the fatal shooting was acting in self-defense. Domestic terrorism is what it has been called by Kristi Noem. Minneapolis mayor terms it a reckless act. We'll bring you all the details coming in from the US. This and a lot more lined up for you. Let's start with the headlines.
Trump administration says it will dictate decisions to Venezuela's interim leaders and control country's oil sales indefinitely after toppling Maduro, while Delcy Rodriguez says no foreign power shall govern Caracas.
Britain says it provided enabling support to Washington during a US operation to seize the Russian-flagged tanker Bella 1 in the North Atlantic. A second tanker, MT Sofia, is captured in the Caribbean.
Donald Trump invites Colombian President Gustavo Petro to White House following their phone call focusing on disagreements and drug issues. Invitation comes days after Trump threatened Petro over drug trafficking.
White House says Donald Trump is considering an offer to buy Greenland, even though Greenland and Denmark have rejected the idea. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he will discuss the matter with the Danish officials.
US immigration agent shoots and kills a woman in her car in Minneapolis amid an immigration enforcement search, triggering outrage from local leaders as President Donald Trump says the officer acted in self-defense.
Protests in Iran spread to Bandar Abbas in southern Hormozgan province, northern city of Rasht and other areas.
Syria's government demands that Kurdish fighters leave the neighborhoods they control in Aleppo following clashes between the two sides, which killed 17 people, causing thousands of civilians to flee.
South Korean President Lee Jae-myung portrays himself and North Korean leader as a pair of affectionate penguins in a social media post, urging Kim Jong-un to meet him and express hope for peace on the Korean peninsula.
Wall Street eases from record highs ahead of key US jobs data, with the Dow and S&P 500 lower while the Nasdaq edges up. Oil prices fall after Trump said that the US would control Venezuelan crude sales, and defense talks slide on threats to cap executive pay.
Days after toppling Nicolas Maduro, the United States is making its intentions very clear for Venezuela.
That's right. The Trump administration now says that it will actually dictate decisions to the country's interim leaders and control its oil sales indefinitely.
Now, Trump has already said that the US will run Venezuela. He said it time and again. And White House has reiterated that it currently enjoys maximum leverage over the interim authorities in Venezuela, and it intends to use that leverage.
We obviously have maximum leverage over the interim authorities in Venezuela right now, and the president has made it very clear that this is a country within the United States, the Western Hemisphere, close by the United States, that is no longer going to be sending illegal drugs to the United States of America. It's no longer going to be sending and trafficking illegal people and criminal cartels to kill American citizens as they have in the past.
Well, President Trump has already announced an agreement with Venezuela, having said that the country will hand over between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil to the US for selling. The US president has also added that Venezuela is going to be purchasing only American-made products with the money from the oil profits. President will on Friday meet executives from US oil companies. Venezuela's state oil firm has said that it is even discussing sales with the US of volumes of oil. Washington says that it is now looking at longer-term control.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio claimed that the administration is not just winging it and has a plan for Venezuela. According to Rubio, the three-step plan will begin with stabilizing the country, overseeing the country's recovery, and finally, a transition.
Well, first of all, the bottom line is that there is a process now in place where we have tremendous control and leverage over what those interim authorities are doing and are able to do. But obviously this will be a process of transition. In the end, it will be up to the Venezuelan people to transform their country. We are prepared under the right conditions, using the leverage that we have, which includes the fact that they cannot move any oil unless we allow them to move it.
The White House has also confirmed that the US is selectively rolling back sanctions on Venezuela.
Now, in Venezuela, thousands took to the streets in the capital, Caracas, in a show of support and to demand the release of Maduro from the United States custody. The leader and his wife, Celia Flores, who are in the US. Venezuela is currently undergoing 7 days of mourning for those killed during the US raid to capture Maduro. Now, at least one civilian and 55 Venezuelan and Cuban soldiers were killed during the operation.
Venezuela's interim leader, Delcy Rodriguez, has defended plans to sell oil to Washington. Rodriguez has admitted that US attack to depose her, Maduro, put a stain on the country's relations, adding that it was not unusual or even irregular to trade with the US.
Washington moved further to stamp its authority on Venezuela when it seized 2 oil tankers on Wednesday, including a Russian-linked vessel that it pursued from Venezuela to the North Atlantic. It was a chase in the high seas, and Moscow condemned that operation with the White House. But the White House insisted that the oil tanker had been deemed stateless after flying a false flag. All right, we'll now cut across to Susan, our colleague, who sends us more details from New York.
U.S. forces have launched a major operation to seize a Russian-flagged oil tanker that fled America's blockade of sanctioned Venezuelan vessels after a weeks-long pursuit across the Atlantic. Boarding the ship in international waters with Coast Guard teams and military support after it changed flags and tried to evade capture. The tanker, formerly known as Bella 1, changed its name to Marinara and was subject to a U.S. court seizure order for alleged sanctions violations tied to Iranian and Venezuelan oil trades, and comes as a broader U.S. crackdown includes multiple tanker seizures in the Caribbean. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the United States is enforcing a maritime quarantine that prevents Venezuela from moving oil without U.S. approval, confirming that vessels tied to sanctioned or stateless entities have been seized and warning that more interceptions are likely. Russia has condemned the action as unlawful under maritime law, underscoring rising geopolitical tensions. Susan Tarhwani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
And joining us on the broadcast is Edward P. Joseph from Washington, D.C. He's lecturer at Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies. Mr. Joseph, appreciate you joining us on the broadcast. A lot has happened in the last 48 hours and more. Specifically about US having seized the two tankers in the Atlantic and the Caribbean. Both China and Moscow have condemned US actions. How do you view the geopolitical scenario vis-a-vis US plans to take control of the oil reserves in Venezuela?
Well, first of all, good to be with you. Let me wish you a Happy New Year to you and your viewers. And say, yes, geopolitically, this is, of course, a seismic event. And we see the reactions in Russia in particular, because it's a Russian vessel that was seized. And we understand that the reaction is actually relatively mild. There's no sharp protest on the part of the Russian government, and in fact, it's relatively mild. The other vessel, of course, is not Chinese flagged, so the Chinese condemnation is more overall criticism of the United States, and also the fact that it is China who is the primary beneficiary of Venezuelan oil. Please.
Mr. Joseph, let me just quickly come to the statements which keep coming out from the Trump administration. You have the White House secretary saying they enjoy maximum leverage. Earlier, you had Marco Rubio saying they're not just winging it when it comes to Venezuela, they actually have a plan. For the Secretary of State to be making a remark or passing a remark like this, telling the media that, no, we do have a plan, does that give away exactly how, frivolous at this point it's seeming, because the president says something, the Secretary of State says something else, and then there are completely different statements coming in from the Venezuelan side where they're vowing to bring Maduro back at any cost?
Well, what Secretary of State Rubio in this, both the briefing to members of Congress and to the media, he's trying to push back on the notion that this is just some improvised operation where they grab Maduro and that they have no concept whatsoever as to how they're actually going to manage Venezuela, particularly when you have President Trump immediately stating that the United States is going to, quote, run Venezuela. So you have Secretary of State Rubio trying to say, look, there's this plan that we have in place, this three-phase plan. He states the first phase, which we should know relatively quickly whether it will actually work, is to have the sale of stored Venezuelan oil, have that oil sold on international markets at the market price, not this discounted price that that Venezuela has to sell to China, for example, but to sell it at the market price. And then he says that the U.S. will ensure that the revenue from the sale of the oil will be dispersed back to the Venezuelan people, but not to the corrupt regime. Now, Democrats in Congress have sharply questioned this because the executive branch does not have the authority. It is Congress that has to authorize disbursements.
Mr.
So
Joseph.
there are questions about that. And then just quickly to say that the second and third phases of this plan concern, the second concerns the reentry of the oil companies, and then finally a transition.
Mr. Joseph, allow me.
Election.
Yeah, I wanted to understand from you, how do you see it? Do you feel, we heard a lot about narco trafficking leading up to those strikes inside Venezuela, and now it's suddenly that entire narrative has turned completely to oil, and now that statement has also come out that we'll indefinitely control the sale of oil. Is it just becoming more and more clear what it's all about, in your appreciation?
Well, we heard exactly the same from Representative Meeks, the ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, who said, hey, wait a minute, this started with drugs hitting these drug boats, then it went to regime change, and now all of a sudden it's about oil. So it's clear that oil is a key priority for the administration, but in terms of the actual importance of it, that will come in the meeting that your package referenced. We will see more about how viable and how central that is to the Trump administration's approach in this meeting that your package referenced with these oil companies. And let's remember, some of those oil companies, for example, ExxonMobil, their main priority or core priority is recovering funds for the expropriation of their assets by Venezuela, which they still have pursued in arbitration channels. So they have priorities that may be different from the U.S. Now,
I hear you.
Otherwise, yes, but otherwise, could it work? Could it work that with investment, could in a near-term time frame, could Venezuela increase its oil production? From what I've read, there are some experts who believe within 2 years, with significant investment, that they could get back not to their peak.
I hear your point.
From
Mr. Joseph,
increase.
Mr. Joseph, we're really running short of time. Samiksha had one more thing to quickly ask you. If you can just keep it briefly. Samiksha, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Joseph, I wanted to ask you regarding the oil reserves in Venezuela. Of course, Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. Given that it has a capacity to produce as much as 17% of the total output across the globe, it has produced only 1%. What are the challenges, in your view, for the U.S. at this point to ensure maximum optimization of the oil reserves in Venezuela?
Well, the first obstacle, of course, is the very bad state of the oil infrastructure in Venezuela, and that will require investment on the part of these companies. But as I referred before, they have past claims. And some of these companies are going to be reluctant to go in without first ensuring that their claims, financial claims against Venezuela, are satisfied. And they're also going to have doubts about the longevity of this. And they're going to want guarantees, real assurances from the U.S. government that whatever investment they make is going to pay off, and that the U.S. will have its back and have cover in case of more instability in Venezuela, please.
Understood. Mr. Joseph, apologies, I had to keep butting in, but we're really short of time. Would love to have you on the show again to discuss this further. That was Edward P. Joseph joining us.
Thank you very much.
Now, the White House says President Trump is actively discussing the purchase of Greenland, saying diplomacy is the preferred path, but military options are not off the table.
In fact, Denmark has strongly rejected the idea, claiming that it would be the end of NATO. Greenland's leaders now say that they will join talks next week itself with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Danish officials.
Now, despite Greenland's status as a semi-autonomous region of Denmark, the Trump administration maintains that American interest in acquiring the island is a long-standing historical objective. White House said that it sees Greenland as crucial for national security, particularly in countering Russian and Chinese aggression in the Arctic region.
The president has been very open and clear with all of you and with the world that he views it in the best interest of the United States to deter Russian and Chinese aggression in the Arctic region. And so that's why his team is currently talking about what a potential purchase would look like.
Well, she claimed that the administration is weighing all options to take control of the strategically located and mineral-rich island. Take a listen.
Following up on Greenland, why not rule out taking it by military force?
All options are always on the table for President Trump as he examines what's in the best interests of the United States. But I will just say that the president's first option always has been diplomacy.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio was also asked whether U.S. was willing to risk the NATO alliance by potentially moving ahead with a military option on Greenland. Rubio did not directly answer that, but stated that Trump had been talking about acquiring Greenland since his first term.
The U.S. Secretary of State even confirmed that he will be meeting Danish officials next week to discuss the Greenland issue.
I'm not here to talk about Denmark or military intervention. I'll be meeting with them next week. We'll have those conversations with them then. But I'm not having anything further to add to that today.
The European Union has pledged full support to Denmark and Greenland, insisting sovereignty and international law must be respected. Germany, France and Poland, they have echoed those same concerns.
Greenland, allow me to be clear. Greenland belongs to its people. Nothing can be decided about Denmark and about Greenland without Denmark or without Greenland. They have the full support and solidarity of the European Union. Europe will remain a firm and unwavering champion of international law and multilateralism.
All right, shifting focus. In fact, this is more news coming in from the US. A US immigration agent shot and killed a 37-year-old woman in her car in Minneapolis.
Now, this marks the latest violent incident during Donald Trump's nationwide crackdown on migrants. Those visuals from that entire encounter have gone viral. It comes during a major immigration enforcement operation in Minneapolis, which is located in the Midwestern state of Minnesota. The administration confirmed the shooting, saying the woman was a rioter who in her vehicle attempted to run over law enforcement officers. In a post on social media, spokesperson of the Department of Homeland Security said an ICE officer, fearing for his life and the lives of his fellow law enforcement officers and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots.
Also, DHS Chief Kristi Noem called the incident domestic terrorism and said that the woman had been stalking and impeding ICE's work throughout the day and then proceeded to weaponizing her vehicle.
These vehicle rammings are domestic acts of terrorism. We're working with the Department of Justice to prosecute them as such. We will continue to protect our ICE officers and in cooperation with other law enforcement agencies as well.
Donald Trump also reacted, calling the woman a professional agitator. However, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey denied the government's allegations and called on ICE officers conducting a second day of mass raids to leave Minneapolis.
This was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying, getting killed.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz called the federal government's response to the incident a propaganda and even vowed his state would ensure that there is a full, fair and expeditious investigation into the incident.
Let me be clear. Donald Trump and his administration may not care much about Minnesota. That's been pretty evident. But we love this state. We won't let them tear us apart. We'll not turn against each other.
A widely shared video of the incident shows a Honda SUV apparently blocking unmarked law enforcement vehicles as they attempted to drive down a snow-covered street. The driver, named by local media as Renee Nicole Good, attempted to drive off as the officers approached her and asked her to stop. They tried to open her door with one agent, then firing 3 times with a handgun as the vehicle pulled away. She was driving away, and from the side, she was shot from the outside by the officer. She was shot in the head, and eventually her car crashed and she was pronounced dead.
Well, there's another video that was filmed right after the shooting, which showed paramedics giving CPR to the woman. The shooting drew protesters onto the streets near the scene. They yelled, "You will be held accountable," as some of them were met by heavy armed federal agents who were wearing gas masks, who fired chemical irritants at the demonstrators.
Oh, what the fuck? What the fuck?
All right, viewers, this is World DNA. We are going to be slipping to a very short break. Lots more lined up for you on the other side. When we come back, more reports coming in. Another Hindu man fell victim to a mob attack in Bangladesh, according to reports. Mithun Sarkar was being chased by a mob accusing him of theft and robbery. These details keep coming in from Bangladesh. We will be bringing you the latest.
Also tracking the latest from India, North India continues to reel under an intense cold wave. We'll get you the latest on the weather conditions in the country after we come back.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. and millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
Thanks for staying tuned. You're watching World DNA. Let's get started with the headlines.
Trump proposes 50% hike in defense budget and raising it to about $1.5 trillion for 2027, calling it necessary in troubled and dangerous times. Says this will allow US to build the dream military it needs.
Venezuela's interior minister says about 100 people died in US attack that led to Maduro's capture, calling the assault terrible. Also claims Maduro and his wife were injured but are now recovering.
Trump administration says it will dictate decisions to Venezuela's interim leaders and control the country's oil sales indefinitely after toppling Maduro, while Delcy Rodriguez in Venezuela says no foreign power will govern Caracas.
White House says Donald Trump is mulling an offer to buy Greenland, even though Greenland and Denmark have rejected the idea. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he will discuss the matter with Danish officials.
Protests in Iran spread to Bandar Abbas in southern Hormozgan province, northern city of Rasht and other areas including Bojnord, Kerman, Shiraz and Tabriz, with anti-inflation demonstrators chanting pro-Shah slogans.
Syria's government demands that Kurdish fighters leave the neighborhoods they control in Aleppo following clashes between the two sides, which killed 17 people, causing thousands of civilians to flee.
South Korean President Lee Jae-myung portrays himself and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un as a pair of affectionate penguins in a social media post, urging Kim Jong-un to meet him and express hope for peace on the Korean peninsula.
Japan's base pay growth held steady in December, signaling that wages are gradually rising. Economists now say that this keeps the Bank of Japan on track to continue interest rate hikes as it works to curb inflation and support the country's economic recovery.
As Bangladesh inches closer to elections, repeated incidents of mob killings of minorities cast a shadow of fear.
That's right. This is another incident that has been reported. Another Hindu man, Mithun Sarkar, fell victim to a mob attack on Wednesday. According to reports, Sarkar was being chased by a mob accusing him of theft and robbery. To escape, he jumped in a canal, but unfortunately, he died by drowning.
This is the latest incident in line of many such attacks which have taken place since December 2025. So far, various men belonging to the Hindu minority community in Bangladesh have been attacked. The rate of violence remains alarming. In December alone, at least 51 incidents of violence were reported against minorities. And these include 10 murders, 10 cases of theft and robbery, and 23 incidents involving the forceful occupation of their homes.
The government has condemned the attacks. Officials have made various arrests and investigations. Multiple investigations are already underway in several of these cases. But the overall reaction so far is that response has been that there's been a failure to stop the attacks on minorities.
The sporadic violence comes at a time when the country is heading for elections. Just in a matter of weeks from now, 12th of February is the date. This will be the first time when Bangladesh holds polls after the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. But the threat of violence has left the minority communities worried about their safety.
Bangladesh heads to polls on February 12th, but the political and social realities are making the task tough for Yunus government. Minorities are increasingly worried about the future in the country. They want mob killings to be central issue in the elections. All right, let's shift to India then, where North India continues to reel from an intense cold wave condition.
Well, lowering temperatures recorded across various states have only been making people feel the winter season more and more. The national capital and adjacent areas remain engulfed in dense fog, and that's not just fog, it's smog rather, for the third straight day after New Delhi recorded its first cold day of the year on the 6th of January. Low visibility has also been reported in several areas across north, central and eastern India. According to the forecast, dense to very dense fog will persist in isolated areas until January 10th.
The Indian Met Department predicts that states including Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar are expected to witness severe cold day conditions for the next 2 to 3 days. Afternoons are expected to be colder than normal, with daytime temperatures likely to drop substantially.
Snowfall has been reported in several hilly areas including Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, recording 0 to sub-zero temperatures. This has caused disruptions in higher altitude areas including blocked roads and reduced visibility.
Meanwhile, India's southern states are preparing for heavy rain and thunderstorms. Light to moderate rainfall along with lightning is expected in isolated places in Tamil Nadu on January 8th and 9th. Heavy rainfall is also expected in Puducherry, Karaikal, Kerala and other regions in the south.
All right, this next story is about one of the most unusual alliances in Indian politics.
That's right, Shivan. The BJP and the Congress parties that are miles apart in ideology and represent rival aisles of political spectrum have joined states' hands, in Maharashtra local body elections.
Well, the area in focus is Ambarnath Municipal Council, where local units of BJP and the Congress and Ajit Pawar led action. He said the alliance with Congress and AIMIM is unacceptable and disciplinary action will be taken on those who violate it.
The Congress also swing into action. The Grand Old Party has issued notices to the local ranks for not seeking prior approval of the senior leadership, that is before entering into an alliance.
Maharashtra municipal elections are set to take place on the 15th of January, but leaders breaking the boundaries of traditional alliances and joining hands with a rival candidate show how local political dynamics take precedence, especially when it comes to local body elections.
Now, a Saudi-led coalition struck the home province of Yemen's UAE-backed separatist leader.
This is after he failed to show up for talks in Riyadh and was ousted from the country's presidential body. Now, the coalition said that it had given Edaros Ali Zubidi a 48-hour ultimatum to come to Riyadh for the discussions after his Southern Transitional Council, that is the STC, grabbed swathes of territory just last month. But he failed to board the flight carrying his delegation, and the coalition struck his home province of Al-Dhali after accusing him of mobilizing large forces there.
Yemen's Presidential Leadership Council, which holds executive power and includes rival UAE and Saudi-backed figures, announced al-Zubeidi's removal, accusing him of high treason. The separatists later said that the delegation they sent to Riyadh had been detained by the Saudi authorities. An official said that more than 50 STC members had not been heard from since arrival in the Saudi capital.
Now, the southern separatists said their leader, al-Zubeidi, was in the port city of Aden overseeing military and security operations after he skipped a flight to Riyadh for talks. And the Saudi state television reported that Saudi-backed Yemeni government forces are advancing towards Aden now.
Yemeni separatists even imposed a nighttime curfew in Aden amid fears of clashes with pro-Saudi forces. The curfew was announced by STC deputy leader Abdul Rahman al-Mahrami, who is in charge of forces patrolling the southern part of the city.
Meanwhile, Giants Brigade's forces Loyal to the STC, they have been deployed across the streets of Yemen's southern city of Aden as residents voice their anger and worry over the deadly Saudi-led strikes on the home province of the separatist leader.
This was a mistake from our Saudi brothers to have acted this way with the Southerns. We in the south are steadfast and we deserve our rights. Planes, missiles or anything else do not frighten us.
They are 100% wrong. I advise every Yemeni citizen, in the south or from any province, that these actions are mistaken and not based on reality. They are spilling Yemeni blood and fueling discord and fighting. We were surprised by this strike because we did not expect Saudi Arabia to carry out such a criminal and terrorist act. This is a terrorist act.
The US has declared a new war. This time it's against added sugar in food.
Well, the Trump administration has issued a new nutrition advice urging Americans to avoid highly processed foods along with added sugars while encouraging consumption of red meat and full-fat dairy.
Now, the latest edition of Federal Nutrition Advice emphasizes on eating more whole foods and protein and calls for cutting consumption of highly processed foods and added sugar. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, our message is clear, eat real food.
Added sugars, especially sugar-sweetened beverages, drive metabolic disease, and today our government declares war on added sugar. Highly processed foods loaded with additives, added sugar, and excess salt damage health and should be avoided. As Secretary of Health and Human Services, my message is clear, eat real food.
Now, the new Federal Nutritional Guidelines contains a new graphic depicting an inverted version of the food pyramid with protein, dairy, healthy fats and fruits and vegetables at the top and whole grains at the bottom.
The new guidelines recognize that whole, nutrient-dense food is the most effective path to better health and lower healthcare costs. Protein and healthy fats are essential and were wrongly discouraged in prior dietary guidelines. We are ending the war on saturated fats. Diets rich in vegetables and fruits reduce disease risk more effectively than many drugs. Whole grains outperform refined carbohydrates.
Well, Kennedy has emphasized that he would end the war on saturated fats, but the administration did not change the previous recommendations on that limits daily calories stemming from saturated fats at 10% mark. Instead, the document suggests that Americans should choose whole food sources of saturated fat, such as meat, whole fat dairy, or avocados as well.
Now, the guidelines also include a call to potentially double protein consumption. The new recommendation is 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And the new guidelines roll back previous recommendations to limit alcohol to 1 drink or less per day for women and 2 drinks or less per day for men. Now, it advises people to consume less alcohol for better health. They also say that alcohol should be avoided by pregnant women, people recovering from alcohol use disorder, and those who are unable to control the amount that they drink.
So alcohol is a social lubricant that brings people together. In the best case scenario, I don't think you should drink alcohol, but it does allow people an excuse to bond and socialize, and there's probably nothing healthier than having a good time with friends in a safe way. If you look at the blue zones, for example, around the world where people live the longest, alcohol is sometimes part of their diet. Again, small amounts, taken very judiciously and usually in a celebratory fashion. So there is alcohol on these dietary guidelines, but the implication is don't have it for breakfast.
A White House appeal challenging the ruling of lower courts against the constitutionality of President Trump's tariffs is pending before the U.S. Supreme Court, and the top court is expected to deliver the rulings on argued cases when it takes the bench on Friday. Legal experts believe the fate of tariffs imposed under a 1977 emergency powers law could be among them. Now, on Tuesday, the Supreme Court added a non-argument conference date on its website, suggesting that it may release its ruling on Trump's tariffs. However, the court does not indicate which rulings it wants to publish ahead of the time given the far-reaching effects on economies throughout the world. And the challenge to Trump's tariffs has attracted a lot of attention. On Friday, in a social media post, Trump said that the US would suffer a terrible blow if the Supreme Court upholds lower court's decision. On Sunday, Trump described the Supreme Court case as one of the most important in the history of the country. In a separate social post on Monday, the president said, I quote here, because of tariffs, our country is financially and from a national security standpoint far stronger and more respected than ever before. Both conservative and liberal justices voiced concerns about the legality of the tariffs during oral arguments in November. The betting markets think there's a high chance that the White House loses its appeal and that could see a raft of tariffs. Those include so-called reciprocal tariffs on EU, China and the rest of the world being struck down. Legal experts also believe that it is likely that the top court will uphold lower court decisions. The Trump administration has said that if the Supreme Court does not rule in its favor, it will use other statutes to push through the tariffs. Still, if the chorus-singing administration were to lose the case, the US would need to refund some of the tariffs. According to latest Customs and Border Protection Agency data, tariffs and generated $89 billion in revenues to the US Treasury by the end of August last year. For India, the timing could not be more critical. The outcome of this judgment will decide whether Indian firms are able to, in fact, recover important summer contracts or whether they will permanently lose American clients. Amid all this uncertainty, Indian exporters are pinning their hopes on the US court stepping in. India and the US remained locked in negotiations on a trade deal, but no breakthrough has been announced so far.
Well, in news from the world of tech then, CEC 2026, the world's biggest technology show, is in full swing in Las Vegas.
Smartphone makers are taking a fresh approach to design, privacy and user experience. From hardware-level privacy controls to expanding screens and digital detox designs, 3 distinct smartphone features are stealing the spotlight this year.
And one of the biggest talking points is hardware-based privacy control, a physical button which is called a kill switch, which allows users to cut off access to microphones, cameras and sensors at the hardware level. Unlike software settings, this switch physically disconnects components, which means no app, malware or even remote hack can override it. Makers say that the feature gives users real control over their data at a time when phones have become constant listening and tracking devices. Another eye-catching innovation is the tri-fold smartphone display. Unlike conventional foldables, this design uses multiple hinges, allowing the phone to expand into tablet-sized screen when they fully open.
Well, the larger display supports multitasking, video streaming and productivity, while still folding down small enough to fit into a pocket. Developers say the aim is to replace the need for both a phone and a tablet by turning a single device into a flexible all-in-one screen. At the other end of this spectrum is a move towards minimalist smartphones designed to reduce screen time by ditching social media apps, color displays and constant notifications. Instead, they focus on core functions like calls, messages and basic tools, using simple, low-glare screens to reduce eye strain and digital distraction. Makers say the goal is to help users regain control over their attention as concerns grow over addiction and excessive daily screen use. And in football, holders Barcelona thrashed Athletic Club to reach the Spanish Super Cup final in Saudi Arabia.
The 15-time winner scored 4 goals in just 16 minutes to seal the win. Well, Barcelona made a strong start. Ferran Torres broke the deadlock in the 22nd minute.
Now, he tapped in after Fermin Lopez's shot was blocked to begin the demolition in Jeddah. Lopez doubled the lead on the half-hour mark with a stunning strike into the top corner. He then completed a hat-trick of goal contributions 4 minutes later by setting up Rooney Barcelona were rampant at this point, and they went on to add a fourth through Rafinha. Now, the Brazilian fired into the roof of the net in the 38th minute to give his side an unassailable lead. The Catalans are the first team in history to score 4 first-half goals in a Spanish Super Cup semi-final. Rafinha claimed his second goal 4 minutes after the restart to make it 5-0, leaving Simon helpless. With this, Barcelona have recorded their 9th consecutive victory in all competitions. Hansi Flick's side will face either Atletico Madrid or 13-time winners Real Madrid in Sunday's final in Jeddah.
Well, Elvis Presley, the world's first rock star, would have celebrated his 91st birthday today.
And on the occasion of his birth anniversary, the iconic singer's fans and tribute artists, they have kicked off their annual journey to the Elvis Festival in the Australian regional town of Parkes. More in this next report. We'll step into a short break after that. That's a wrap on World DNA. Thanks so much for staying with us.
Because for the last 2 years, I've been told how incredible this festival is. And I've been in Australia a few times over the last couple of years, and everyone said, oh, you're going to Parkes, you're going to Parkes, you're going to Parkes. And I've always been like, no, I'm not going. So I've made the conscious decision to come this year, and I'm already thankful that I've come. One day in.
We really need happiness, don't we? We need joy. And that's what Elvis has brought to me, is joy, happiness. Even through all our troubles, I just love just listening to his music. And when you listen to his music, you forget about all these problems. You just have that moment away from it, and you really listen to what he's singing about, because he really sang, he really told a story when he was singing.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India.